other handles showing on your screen.
Of course, don't forget to also always include your name and your location. Plus, please use the hashtag Fullstream, hashtag Supplementary Elections and 2019 Elections. Well, let's begin by bringing you some numbers that matter to the supplementary election. Random as they may seem, Iowa, they are playing a significant role in today's exercise.
Definitely. Let's take a look at those numbers right now.
Well, it seems those numbers aren't coming, but before they come, I mean, there has been a lot of reactions.
Definitely.
As always, every election, you know, there are reactions coming in, you know, from various parts of social media. But our first port of call today is Twitter, and we begin with this message from, actually, this one is coming from Mukhtar Jarmajo, and he says it's 23rd of March in Bauchi and 5 other states. Supplementary elections are holding. I pray for peaceful elections, but I mean, speaking about the states where these elections will be holding, he mentioned Bauchi and 5 other states, but in Bauchi and Adamawa, you know, court rulings here and there, you know.
So those will not be holding
just yet? Yeah, will not be holding just yet. And
he was referring to governorship.
Yeah.
But that's not all that's happening.
Indeed, that's not all that's happening.
Now, let's take another tweet from Deomola Olarioju said, supplementary elections in not 1 or 2 states, but almost half a dozen. The pattern is just too obvious to be missed.
Well, I wish Deomola kind of, you know, expatiated further on what he means by the patterns are too obvious to be missed.
I feel like there are hidden messages in his message.
Indeed, so it's like a sub, so to speak now. Well, the next one is from Abdul Idris Kayama, and he or she says, let the will of the people prevail at INEC Nigeria, at Police NG, as well as at HQ Nigeria Army supplementary elections, and that's the hashtag he is using. Of course, that's what we use here right here on Channels Television.
And we have Edo Michael who said, this is coming to the fore again. Voided cancelled votes where voting already started or held at all and not to be compensated for by the way of so-called supplementary elections. Only in places where voting did not begin at all should there be supplementary elections. This person did use the hashtag Osun Tribunal. Yeah. It's quite interesting, the messages we're getting, Victor, while some, as always, would, you know, call for peace and say, you know, just go out, do your civic duty and be peaceful. Some others would say, you know, I'm quite skeptical about this entire process.
I mean, instead of being skeptical, why don't you just go out there and do your part?
Well, definitely, but it's not a surprise to me, Victor. This entire election cycle has been such a roller coaster. So many things springing forth here and there. You know that voter apathy has been a big topic the whole season. So I think it's expected that some people will be skeptic and, you know, will have doubts.
Well, let's hope those surprises don't come again. But, you know, still talking reactions and trends, Maiwa, moving forward, you know, this time around.
Zara Musa?
Oh, yeah, indeed. Well, Zara Musa is saying that we wish all those voting today peaceful and safe voting. She goes on with the hashtag supplementary elections, of course.
And
it's a vote, not fight situation.
Definitely. Always vote, not fight. We have _SE who said, hashtag supplementary elections, remember to vote, not to fight, and accept the outcome of election results. I like this message, Victor. And earlier on, you know, which we will get to, reactions, other reactions on social media. Remember the person who used the hashtag Osun Tribunal. Yeah. Victor, you want to talk to us about that?
Well, indeed, yeah, we'll still talk about that. And of course, one topic that has, you know, that usually comes to mind is the issue of the Osun Tribunal, which gave victory to Senator Ademola Adeleke. But I mean, speaking of that ruling, some reactions to social media show that some believe that it is an omen. I don't know what you think.
Well, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to be quoted or misquoted, but let's report what people are telling us on social media, which is what we're asking everyone to do on the program today. People take that as an omen. So many reactions I read all the way from yesterday when news broke up until this morning. You know, people are saying, "Oh my God!"
Up until we got into the studio.
Into the studio. So many people are like, you know, is this an omen for today's show? Is it not for today's show? I beg your pardon.
For today's elections.
Today's exercise. I think that's my entertainment side.
Yeah, I get it.
For today's exercise, it's an omen. People are wondering how much of what we do today, or how much of what INEC does today, how much of what Nigeria does today will end up at the tribunal.
Well, to get more reactions or to get answers to some of those questions. Now we are being joined by a political analyst right here in our Lagos studio, Dele Ashiru. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for this invitation. It's my pleasure.
Of course. So we also have joining us from Dunedin in New Zealand, a political scientist, Dr. Olumuyiwa Amao. It's a pleasure to have you as well on the program, Doctor.
Always a pleasure to be here, Victor.
Indeed.
Victor, let me just point out that we also have a doctor in the studio. It's Dr. Dele Ashiru.
Indeed. I'm so sorry, Doctor, for not acknowledging that in the beginning. But, well, let's get that conversation started. So some people are saying that this election, I mean, looking at the tribunal, the tribunal from yesterday, the tribunal victory or the tribunal ruling from yesterday, now they're saying that this might be an omen, looking at the fact that today's elections and even the Osun elections also had supplementary elections or a rerun. But what do you think would be the outcome at the tail end of everything?
Well,
go ahead, Dr. Ashiru.
The Osun election is rekindling people's confidence in the electoral process. If you observe, you will notice that in the elections that we have had, the presidential, the state elections, you find voters refusing to come out to exercise their franchise. This is an indication that people are beginning to feel that the electoral process seems not to be objective. But with this kind of decisions now, people's hope, people's interest will become rekindled in the process, and they will be more willing to participate in the political and electoral processes.
So I take it that you also see it as some sort of omen as well. What you see is in the positive, that because no process can be perfect. As long as it's by humans, it's going to be flawed. But with that exercise yesterday, you're saying that people's confidence will be reboosted. Now the question is, I'm hoping to see people actually go out and participate today. Do you see that creating that kind of reaction?
Well, the gap between what happened yesterday and today may appear a little short for the kind of reaction that you are talking about. But in the long run, people will begin to realize that even if, for whatever reasons, their wishes or will are prevented, there are some other institutions of democracy, institutions of state that are capable, that are courageous enough to right whatever wrong that they perceive from the process. So the effect may not be immediate. It may only signal, better understanding of the political process in the long run.
Well, let me bring in Dr. Olumuyiwa from Dunedin. Doctor, I mean, one word, or let me say one lexicon that has been very recurrent in Nigeria's political space is inconclusive. How do we get that out of the picture in the nearest future?
Well, I think it's a combination of many factors. The first is about correctness of the election and how well it nice relationship between team on agencies in the cover together. That is one of the major after that year, the quality of the election that it acts together on time. I think it took so many things for granted. It did believe that it had the capacity to make a difference within a very short period of time. And in the process of doing that, it forgot about the Nigerian factor. The Nigerian factor of what the politicians will bring to the table, of how the electorates are well prepared and what roles have for the electorate and what roles are for the security. So it's a mixed bag of so many things that needs to be done moving forward. But I do think that the Electoral Commission needs to sit tight and do what it needs to do as and when due, not taking things until the last minute. Take, for example, the last presidential elections and the postponement that we had barely few hours to the election itself. Ideally, this shouldn't happen to a commission that knows what it's doing. So I feel that much of the bulk or much of the blame has to do with the Electoral Commission, and its capacity has to be really, questioned and considered moving forward. We can do it as a Nigerian people. We've done that several years before. History and events have shown that when Nigerians put their minds together, they can achieve whatever they seek to achieve.
So let me
have a commission that is good.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in quickly, Olumi. We were talking about coming together to do these things together. There's the issue of also sensitization just ahead of the elections then, and also now ahead of the supplementary elections, because I think one of the reasons why we have void votes is the issue of sensitization. How well would you say INEC and Nigerians as well as the NOA have gone in terms of sensitizing people ahead of the elections?
Well, I think the problem with the void votes that we have had in this election has to do with the number of parties on the ballot, really. When you have a situation where you have 70 to 80 or in some instances 91 political parties on the ballot for a particular election, and with a civilian or a civil population that's just about 65% literacy rate, there is no way you wouldn't have issues about overvoting and void voting or undervoting, as you like. So, one, we need to look at our electoral process all over again. Do we really need that quantum or that number of parties on the ballot every time? If you ask me, the answer is no. I think that the National Assembly needs to look into that. We must find a way of, reducing the number of political parties we have in operation, somehow in such a way that you do not disenfranchise political parties that has the capacity to deliver. One. Two, INEC, as presently constituted, particularly during this last exercise, or this ongoing exercise, if you ask me, has failed terribly to sensitize Nigerians as it should be. And one more important organ of government, which hasn't been active over the last 4 years, the National Orientation Agency. It used to be very active during the former administration. It went absolutely quiet or silent during this dispensation. I mean, these are agencies of government that needs to be brought together as a team to make things work. I also think that INEC has depended too much on the mass media, forgetting that the mass majority of Nigerians are not interested in what goes on the mass media vis-a-vis the TVs and the print media. Many of them don't actually have the power or the electricity to stream or watch these programs. So INEC needs to do better moving forward by going to the grassroots, sensitizing people through campaigns, through going to the markets, going to schools, talk to people in churches and mosques, and all vital areas of the Nigerian state where you can meet the mass of the people who don't have the capacity to watch the print media, to read the print media or watch TV, as you and I could possibly do. So I think that INEC needs to do that. INEC also needs to work with agencies of government, work with religious leaders, work with the civil society, and of course, the National Orientation Agency needs to wake up from its slumber. Apparently, that agency has been done over the last 4 years.
Just hold it. All right. Just hold it. Hold your thoughts for a second.
We'll bring in Dr. Asher in the studio to respond to
some of those. Well, speaking of the NOA, Dr. Asher, of course, we've seen the DG of the NOA, making statements on television, as well. But do you think they have done enough, so to speak?
Well, I don't think that they have done enough, and I also don't think that in terms of voter education, we have all done enough. I use the word we because educating the electorate is not particularly the job of INEC. Political parties are the ones that are traditionally saddled with the responsibility of educating the electorate. However, all those that are involved in the electoral processes also have a role in educating the people and the electorate. For me, contrary to the position held by my colleague who had just made his opinion known, I think that yes, INEC has its own share of the blame, but I think the bulk of the blame and the problem really is the premium that is placed on the capture of political power in Nigeria. There is a linkage between, your affluence in society and the position, the political office that you hold. Until we do something about ensuring that once you get hold of political power, you don't become rich overnight.
All right, Dr.
We will continue to listen to inconclusive elections year in, year out.
Dr. Ashiru.
Well, the thing is, I mean, let's just hope that, happens in the very nearest future. But we would have to say thank you for joining us, Dr. Ashiru, as well as Dr. Amao from New Zealand, as well as here in Lagos. We'll take a quick break I beg your pardon, I almost said news track. We'll take a quick break on Pulse Stream, and we'll be back in a moment with another perspective. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to Pulse Stream. We're here to follow up on trends and reactions on social media as citizens in parts of the country return to the polls today.
That's right. Now, be a part of the conversation. Don't just watch us right here in the studio. Also, take your phones, your tablets, your computers, and use the hashtag PulseStream Supplementary Elections 2019 elections on Twitter, on Facebook, as well as Instagram. You can also follow Channels Television on all our social media platforms.
Now, earlier on, we had a conversation with Dr. Ashiru and Dr. Amo, but we still have Dr. Ashiru with us in our Lagos studio to continue this conversation. But this time I want to take a look at security and what role it's going to play today, how it did the last time, and what the situation is today. Dr. Ashiru, what do you expect to see today in terms of security?
Well, I expect a hitch-free election. If we go by the democratic tenets, our elections ought not to be militarized the way we used to witness. It should also not be over-politicized, over-policed. At the moment, our electoral processes are getting over-policed because of the behavior of the political actors. You see, because of the premium we place on political power, when elections are coming, all the actors are concerned about is, the calculus of winning. Nobody contemplates losing. An election ought to be viewed like a competition where there will be a winner and a loser. Until we imbibe this democratic ethos, our elections will continue to remain this militarized.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of militarization of the elections, there is a probe ongoing, as you're aware, by the military on the role they played, especially in the Rivers election. Don't you think that's a step in the right direction towards that point that you say you want to see?
Well, certainly. Certainly, it is thumbs up for the military to be so proactive in setting up that probe, because it is interesting for us to know the dramatist personnel in the Rivers saga and those who ordered, that kind of military jackboot exercise. So I commend the Army institution for instituting the probe. I only hope that, the processes will be as transparent and as seamless, such that the facts of the matter will be known to the Nigerian people.
So I mean, it's been a mixed reaction, as to the deployment of the military. During the last election, right here on Pulse Stream, someone sent us a video of thugs, wrestling ballot boxes from a particular polling unit, and it had only one police officer who couldn't, contain the situation. So some say that the over-policing or policing of the system or the exercise, is good, while, I mean, on the other side, some say it is not. So how do we have a middle ground?
Well, we can't have a middle ground. I think what we need to do is to rethink our electoral process and make it unattractive for people to snatch ballot boxes. If there is no urge to snatch ballot box, there will be no need to deploy military, there will be no need for the police. So, and I've advocated severally that we need to rethink the entire political and electoral architecture in Nigeria and reduce the level of violent competition in our election. If we develop a more consensual approach to the electoral process, to the political process. They ought to snatch ballot boxes. They urge to use violence to win at all costs. And the win-win, winner-takes-all syndrome will save us from all of these electoral vices.
Now, of course, the politicians who have this attitude that you're condemning, which is, just win at all costs, they have foot soldiers that they use. That those are the everyday people that we see around us who, become instruments in their hands. And speaking of these people, electoral...
Those foot soldiers are also online.
Definitely. So I'm speaking of the ones who actually go out there to snatch the ballot boxes, and thankfully a number of them have been caught. But let's talk about prosecution. Would you say that the process has been fast enough and proactive enough? Because people want to see people prosecuted like right now, sent to prison right now, but we haven't seen any of that. What's your take on this?
That will not happen. Yes, prosecution is slow, but why are they not prosecuted? They are not prosecuted because it is the people who ought to do the prosecution that is arming them, that is sending them on the errand to unleash violence on the people. And therefore, to attempt to prosecute or punish them would have consequences of backlash to all of these people. And that is why the state must become, more empowered, to be able to get insulated from the capture of those who are at the moment holding the state at the jugular. If you look at the electoral and political history of Nigeria, you find out that most political thugs, most people who have unleashed violence during the election are in a way rewarded, either with contracts or with appointments or with contracts. The time was in Nigeria when those who acted as militia during elections were given contracts to safeguard pipelines in Nigeria.
Dr. Ashiru, let's hope that all of that will be something of the past and something that doesn't come to happen again. But we have to say now, thank you for joining us on the program this beautiful morning. But that's where we have to, again, wrap it up on Poll Stream this time around. Thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget, also be a part of the conversation. Use the hashtags 2019 elections, supplementary elections, as well as Poll Stream. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.
And I'm Iowa.
Don't forget, vote, not fight.